Great. Thank you, Brittany, so much for that. And thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm going to talk through the program a little bit. And first of all, I'm Spencer Clark, and I'm the EdD coordinator at K-State. And I'm in the Department of Curriculum Instruction. And have some other responsibilities too, but this is what we're focusing on tonight. I wanted to start with just a couple of the key things that people are usually asking about, and let me give you a little background while you're looking at those before I get started. We're getting ready to start our fourth cohort of our completely 100% online EdD this summer, and we have our first cohort graduating this year. We have 7 out of our original 12 that are going to graduate here in May, and then the other 5 are going to finish up this summer. And so they were able to finish up, and 7 of them in under 3 years, and then the other ones will be right at 3 years. So we're excited, and we feel like we've grown a lot over the last 3 years and kind of figured out some of the kinks and have a really great program to offer. So some of the key things as people as Brittany and I field a lot of questions, the things that seem to come up the most, cost and value. K-State is fairly competitive, especially with other educational doctorates in curriculum instruction across the country. The cost is roughly $12,075 per year, and that's based on our regular tuition rates. Right now, the rate's actually less than that because we have kind of a special rate for during COVID, and that will last through the summer. We're not really sure how much longer that will last, but at least take effect this summer. So it's actually going to be a little bit cheaper this summer. But that's based on about 21 credit hours per year, and so that gives you kind of a rough idea of cost. And you can go faster or slower, but to get done in 3 years as we propose, that's roughly the yearly rate. As I just said, the time is 3 years, roughly 9 to 10 semesters, and we've set up a program of study that allows you to get done in that amount of time. And like I said, we've had 7 finish so far, before actually a semester ahead, so it is completely doable. The courses are all completely 100% online, and it's a mix of kind of synchronous and asynchronous. Most classes are asynchronous. All classes are, even if they are synchronous, all classes are recorded. So, for example, we have an intro class this summer, and the professor likes to meet in the mornings, but we have several in our cohort that have to be in their buildings, during the summer. And so, he'll record the course and post it online in our learning management system, and they can watch it later and interact. But we've made it completely flexible and convenient for all different types of situations. So one thing that makes our program really different is that the dissertation is integrated into the program. So I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but we designed this program to kind of address some of the speed bumps typically for practicing educators trying to get their doctorate. And so one of those is kind of the dissertation phase. So in a typical PhD or EdD, you would take all your coursework, and that would take 3 years, and then you would take your exam, and then you would start your dissertation. And so the way we've set it up, you'll actually work on your dissertation the whole time, and by the time you're done with your coursework, you'll be ready to propose your dissertation and start working on that. And so that's what allows you to finish up in 3 years, as opposed to maybe 4 or 5 in another PhD or EdD program. Also, we allow you to personalize your dissertation. So all of our students so far have been able to research and be about things they're passionate about and really interested in. That's a little bit different than some other programs too, where they may expect you to research what your advisor is doing, or someone in the department. So this gives you a lot more flexibility to really do something that's interesting and can impact your own school or classroom or educational environment. It is cohort model, and so we set up like that so that you would go through all your coursework those first 2 years together. And those cohorts have been averaging about 20 students per cohort for the first 3. So that gives you kind of a rough idea, but it's a good mix, and we have people from all over the country in there, and so it adds to really rich discussion and courses. And we have people in the West, people here in Kansas and Midwest and the East Coast, and also internationally. So it makes for a really interesting cohort. And then the admissions process, we've tried to streamline that as much as possible. Also, we don't require the GRE for admission, and I like to say we were the first ones to do that, but a lot of major schools have started doing that because it doesn't give us much indication who's successful in a doctoral program. But then recommendation letters and a writing sample are kind of the other key parts of that as you're thinking about the application. So, if you have questions on the way, feel free to put those in the chat, but then we also will have a question session at the end. So feel free to wait till then too. So what does a 3-year EdD look like? And if you've been in contact with me already, this is something that I've sent you to kind of just give you a rough idea. This looks very structured, and it is in a sense that this is kind of our pathway for you to get done in 3 years, but there are opportunities to tailor it to your own interests along the way. So, again, there's some courses that will be kind of required, but then for the most part, there is probably 3 or 4 courses that you could switch out to better fit your interests if need be. So, and so the typical pattern is that you'll have 3 courses in the first 2 summers that are one's related to kind of getting oriented to doctoral research, and then some content courses. And then, in the second summer, you'll have a course just completely on literature reviews, getting you ready for, your chapter 2 of your dissertation, along with some other content courses. But then in the fall and spring, again, we're trying to address the needs of practicing educators. In the fall and spring, you'll have 2 courses, and only one of those will be kind of a traditional research methods course. So you'll be getting your research methods training. And then the other courses, we call it an internship. It's not a traditional internship, but that's where you actually be working on your dissertation. And so each of those fall and spring semester, it's kind of like a writing workshop to work on your dissertation chapters. And it's coupled with those research classes on purpose, because that's what's going to be guiding your inquiry and your dissertation. So, so those fall and spring semesters, the load is quite a bit less in terms of coursework, and that's on purpose because I'd say 99% of the people in our program are in classrooms or in some sort of teaching context. So, all right, and so that's kind of the basic structure. And then that last summer, it tapers off a little bit. And we just have two courses, and that's for our first cohort and our second cohort who's coming up this summer. Most will defend kind of the end of that summer. That's third summer in August or September. They defend their proposal for their dissertation. And so then you have, because most dissertations are focused on the educator's context, or in a school, they want to collect data in either usually fall and or spring, and so that sets them up for that last year of your EdD is just collecting data and writing up the last couple of chapters of your dissertation. So we tried to break it down and also make sure you're supported well all along the way, and kind of address some of those common speed bumps that students have run into in the past. And over here on the right hand column, I've kind of given some ideas of what specifically you'll be working on in terms of your dissertation each semester. And so you can see it's a very procedural kind of process, going chapter by chapter and getting everything outlined to this third summer, where you'll prepare your proposal and get ready for your exam and defense. So, and that's the other thing too that helps kind of expedites the degree a little bit is that in a typical EdD or PhD program, you would have 3 defense dates. You'd have your exam at the end of your coursework, and then you'd have your proposal defense, several months after that, and then you'd have your dissertation defense after that. And so we put the preliminary exam and the proposal defense together, and that helps kind of catapult you into that dissertation phase, and keep you moving along. So. And then just kind of to break it down again, as I was mentioning, those internship classes, the writing workshops will help you kind of focus. So by, if you were to start in this cohort this summer, by this time next year, you would have a rough draft of your chapter 1 and 2 in your dissertation, and would have 21 hours of coursework done. In year 2, we would continue to work on chapter 2 and 3 and get that completely finished. And then by year 3 that summer, that's when you'd have all your chapters ready for that proposal. And as you can see here, moving down to kind of spring would be kind of the earliest you'd be able to defend your dissertation, and then most will defend there in that 4th summer. So, all right. Another common question we get is kind of what's the difference between an EdD and a PhD? There's a lot of kind of mythology out there about the differences. Really, the differences it's different at each university, kind of what that means. And for example, for many years, a couple of the top universities in the country, Columbia and Harvard, only had EdDs. They didn't even have PhDs. And so, it really depends on the school. And really, for our purposes, both degrees at K-State can get you to the same place. They can prepare you for higher education. They can prepare you for district leadership. They can, however you want to use that they prepare you the same way. Really, the biggest difference with K-State is just kind of the structure and the flexibility and that path to completing the program. So, so you can see here kind of the difference in time frame, kind of the 3 compared to, I'd say an average PhD would be like kind of that 4 to 5 range. The EdD is completely online. The PhD is face-to-face and hybrid. The dissertation I just mentioned is integrated coursework. That's kind of one of the biggest differences. We do have a bit of a more of a practitioner focus in the EdD, and that's just based on who's in the program. A lot of the topics are more focused on actual practice and issues facing educational leaders and teachers, whereas a lot of people in our PhD program are actually looking at like teacher education issues and things like that. So they're not in the classroom, so they don't have as much access to kind of that thing. But I think that's where education is going. Is we want more educational researchers in classrooms and in schools, right, to help make kind of contextualized database decisions. Instead of having someone else tell us what to do in our own schools and classrooms, we want educational leaders in those schools. So we do have a little bit, we have a little bit of flexibility too in the dissertation format, and that's kind of a cool thing I think about the EdD. We kept the traditional empirical dissertation, but we also have a couple other options, and one is kind of a curricular focused dissertation in which you actually create a curriculum product, and so kind of addressing a need you see in your area or field and developing a curriculum based off of what's out there and what needs to be created. And then there's also the opportunity for collaborative dissertation. So, if you and a colleague are both at the same school or the same district and you want to look at the same problem from kind of, maybe a quantitative lens and a qualitative lens, we have that flexibility to kind of allow you both, you wouldn't defend together, but you could work on the same issue, and kind of work on some of the same, use some of the same literature and resources and things like that. So, it'd be more efficient in some ways, but you'd still, individually defend on that topic. But that would open up a lot of other options and publication things. So it's kind of cool. And I know Vanderbilt University does that, and I think University of Texas has a similar one for their leadership programs where they can do a collaborative doctorate, and that's kind of interesting. But yeah, so and then career goals, as I mentioned, both degrees can get you wherever you want to go. My advisor was an EdD, and he's one of the top researchers in my field. And so it's really what you want to do with it, and we can help you do that. We've had let's see, I think we've had 6 students now publish in academic journals. We had one just recently published in an impact factor journal while they're doing it. And others are just really focused on researching their classroom and doing that, and that's perfectly fine too. So we have a whole range and spectrum of goals within our program. So. Admission requirements, we'd like you to be an educator. For the EdD, that's kind of one way we distinguish it from the PhD, and that can be community college or university or schools, or whatever you define educator. One of my students right now that I'm working on with their dissertation, she works with first generation students in the curriculum and classes at a university here in Kansas. And so, a whole range of how we do that. And so I know some people kind of get hung up on that, but really we just want educators. The grad school application is $65. We do, want you to have an undergraduate degree, obviously, and then also a master's with at least a 3.0 GPA, and we would need the official transcripts with that. That's something I didn't mention either, and I need to add a slide about that. So the total degree is 94 hours, okay? But 30 hours from your master's counts towards that. Okay, so that program of study that I outlined is that 64 hours that remains after your master's. So your master's is built into that 94-hour degree. So that's the other thing that allows you to get done in 3 years, is that we are able to count 30 hours of your master's towards that. Okay, and then a writing sample, and so that can be from maybe your master's program or a course, or maybe you created a district policy guide, or anything that would work in that sense, just to give us a sense of your writing ability. And then 3 letters of recommendation. And I think on the actual application, it gives kind of some specific examples, and we just put some possible people out there, and so don't get hung up with that. But we just want to see maybe from someone at your work, and then maybe someone that can speak about your academic ability. So just kind of try and cover a range of recommenders if you can. I think that's it for that. Another big question, right, is funding EdD. I'm always excited to talk about this part of it. We are actually able to provide, I need to debate the term here, we are actually calling them scholarships now. We have some opportunities for you to teach and gain higher ed experience with our master's and undergraduate programs. And so we have a half-time scholarship at $6,000 per year, which would roughly exactly cover about half your tuition per year, and then a full-time, which is $12,000 per year, and covers nearly all of your tuition. And so those work out really nice, because we found that they work better than other ways of funding, because it just goes directly to your tuition, and there's no taxes taken out or anything like that. So and what those entail, there's a little bit of variance just depending on what we need. One of the most common ones is we have a large online master's program that licenses teachers within a year. And so to kind of facilitate that large program, we have you be a mentor to a group. So if you're half-time, that would be up to 5 students, and you'd be their mentor for that year. And then if full-time would be up to 10 students. And so you work with them throughout the year in the master's program. We also have online undergraduate programs that we need help with, and different things. So we have a variety ways to utilize your talents, you know, and depending on your expertise and what your background is, we can kind of situate you in different things. So, but I think we're one of the few programs across the country that can do that. And right now we have 29 of our students in our EdD program are funded through scholarships. So, you know, we do have a good amount of opportunity for that. There are also global campus scholarships, and of course student loans, and there's other scholarships out there for educational doctoral students too that you can find through our grad school and other places too. Some other kind of commonly asked questions, kind of start in fall and spring. Yes, you can. We usually have 3 or 4 that start, you know, out of sequence with the cohort, and you know, you kind of exist between cohorts, which is, you know, some people enjoy. They get to see different groups of people at different times, you know, but we offer enough classes that you can still finish up in 3 years. It's just, you know, it's not as clear cut as we lay out, but it definitely works. We actually have 2 people graduating this summer, kind of going that path. So, you know, and I talked about the internships briefly and said they're not a traditional internship, and so that's always a question: how do I complete that? There's no, you don't need to set up anything at your school or anything like that, like a traditional internship. Like I said, it's just the kind of the terminology for the course that we had to use within the catalog. So there's nothing you have to set up on your end. It's strictly just kind of a writing workshop to work on your dissertation. And as I just mentioned, your master's degree counts 30 hours. We can accept up to 10 more hours of graduate credit if you started a graduate or a doctoral program somewhere else, you know, and have some credits. We can look at transferring some of those in if they match courses that we have in our program. Okay. The other big question is, can this count towards a superintendent license or a district license? And we have worked out a way that we can. We work with our leadership department at Kansas State. That is about 19 hours for that superintendent's or district license, and we've worked it out to where we can substitute classes and get you that license through the leadership department. I think with only maybe I think it was, we have 2 different options. So either with 4 extra credit hours or 1 extra credit hour, because there's an internship associated with that. So so yeah, there is some possibilities there to get that license. We also have certificates that you can get in combination with the EdD, and I'm jumping ahead as I see here, but we have technology, qualitative research, social justice certificate. So we have some different certificates that you could sub out some of the classes on there and work towards those certificates while getting the EdD too, if that was of interest to you. And then what else? And as I mentioned, yeah, we do have some options for the courses, even though it is kind of, you know, that map I showed was a little structured, but there are options based on your interests. So, all right. The applications are due May 1st. We like to have May 1st because just to get everything through the grad school and transcripts and everything like that. We can usually accept up to May 15th if we need to, but ideally we'd like you to have you apply by May 1st, because courses start there at the end of May, 1st of June. So, you know, May 15th only gives you a couple of weeks to kind of get everything set up and ready. But we try to start kind of right when school is finishing up. So, all right. Sorry, I'm gonna take a drink of water here. While you're thinking of questions, I'll go ahead and see if there's any in the chat that maybe. Let's see. Omar, your master's will be finished in fall 2021. I'm not sure about that. I think you still would have to submit them in your application. I think from past experience. I'm not sure though. That would be a good question for our graduate coordinator. And so I can follow up on that if you email me. What other questions do people have? Yeah, so David's question, can we take elective classes from departments outside education? Yes, you can. We have two students that are in Teach World Languages actually, and they're going to take a couple classes in our World Languages department this summer. So no, you don't have to have a teacher certificate to be in the program. Or do they have a teacher certificate? Yeah, Sharice, could you clarify that question? Okay, my degrees were more than 10 years ago. Yeah, so with your master's degree, you know, we can accept those. But then the credits have to be within the last 6 years if you're going to transfer into the 64 hours. So so the master's is not a problem if it's 10 years ago, but yeah, any transfer credits that would come in would need to be within the last 6 years. So, and Omar's question, how do the systems work towards the EdD? They don't really contribute to the EdD in any way. It's more of just a way to subsidize the cost. And so it works as a scholarship. But you know, for those of you who are interested in teaching higher education someday, those experiences are very worthwhile, because that's, you know, I'm on a hiring committee right now, and that's the first thing we look at. Do they have higher education teaching experience and working with students in higher ed? So it gives you that experience and kind of gives you a head start into getting those higher ed jobs. Yeah, April, so perfectly fine. If you haven't you know, had courses in a while, or you know, I ran into the same problem when I was applying to grad school. So you know, yeah, and anybody that's kind of seen you write or work on things, anybody that can speak to your, you know, any sort of academic or analytic ability at work would be great, and that would be helpful. Yeah, Julie, that's an interesting question. I would have to look at the reading specialist, and I can put you in contact with Dr. Larson, who kind of heads that up, and Dr. Porath, and they're both very involved in the program. You know, I know we do have students that take the advanced literacy courses, and I would just need to see which courses are specifically in that reading specialist. I can actually look it up here after when we finish up, if you want to stick around for a little bit and give you a quick answer. But I know the only hangup would be there's only so many 700 level classes allowed on a doctoral program of study, and so I just had to see how many of those courses in the reading specialist degree are 700 level. But I think I'm almost certain we can make that work. So. Yeah, Sharice, if you want to take courses in other departments as electives, that would be perfectly fine. Yeah, and Sarah, it can be any educator at any level. Yeah, all those work. And yeah, we have some research specialists and so that's perfectly fine. You would be a great addition to our program. I shouldn't say this out loud, but I actually live in Lawrence too. So yeah, and so your elective course could definitely be in special education. The only challenge is some of the other departments don't have as much. Well, before they didn't have as much online, but now pretty much all departments have everything online thanks to COVID. So I think special ed was one of those that still had mostly face-to-face doctoral courses, but now I think everything's online. So you could definitely do that, and actually have 2 students taking courses in special education this summer to kind of fill out, because they're working on social emotional learning as part of their dissertation topic. And so there's a course on that in special education. I'm not sure about your question. Sorry, go ahead, Brittany.
I was just going to say that David had a question about what types of courses they would teach or mentor, and would a person's content area be a benefit? For instance, he's taught chemistry in the past.
Yeah. So that's a good question. Yeah, so we do have some that the science is kind of one of the areas we don't have a specialized. I mean, Brittany and I were actually talking about this before class. We're trying to get a science MAT program going, but yeah, we do have undergraduate science and some secondary that we would probably be able to. It just depends on the semester and the year of what we need, but yeah, that would be the only downside, is some of the MAT work or the scholarships may be just kind of general secondary education, or it might be math or something like that. But yeah, but that's perfectly, it's totally up to you. We give you the choice if you want to accept. We tell you exactly what you're getting into, so you don't get in there and say I don't want to do this. But so we're completely upfront about what you'd be working with. But yeah, it just changes, and then sometimes it's just almost all of our field experiences and student teaching are done virtually now. And so instead of having a university supervisor go out to the classroom, and we were doing this before COVID, and so that's also another piece, is just being an serving as a university supervisor, and so that would be something that you could work with science teachers, student teachers or something like that, and that might be something too. Elective hours, so it's roughly 6 to 9 elective hours could be granted in the EdD, and so that's 2 or 3 classes. We could actually do, and we could do more too, if we could just take away from your dissertation hours if you wanted to do that. Yes, and also all the literacy courses are online, and so that would, literacy would be easy for that. And there's some really great courses in literacy that are great electives to add on to that. Yeah, David, that's a good question. That's I'm conflicted from the get-go, though. I'm from Missouri. I went to KU for undergrad, and then now I teach at K-State, so I'm just a trader from day one. So I have no loyalty whatsoever. I actually have a lot of K-State graduates that live on my street, though, so I'm able to survive. Let's see. Yeah, sure. So you could take electives, and we have a wide range of things. So yeah, if you just wanted to, some specific education courses, we do have a lot of different options there. So. Yeah, and so and I should have mentioned this too, back to David's question, so when you apply, you upload your CV or your resume, and so that's all we really need. And there's a question on there: do you want an assistantship? And so you want to check that if you're interested. And then we have your CV, and we can see kind of what's your expertise. And if we need clarification, I'll follow up with you and say, hey, what would you rather do here? So. Yeah, and sorry, I should have talked about the time commitment. So the half a lot of this just depends on how efficient you are. I know I'm just a slower reader, so part of the mentoring is grading, and working with those 5 students, and so it's just kind of a matter of how quickly you work and things. But I'd say halftime is probably 5 to 10 hours a week, it ebbs and flows, right? So there might be some weeks where there's not much time commitment. It's pretty intense the first summer, or during the summer, at first, for a couple of weeks, and then it kind of plateaus. And so it kind of has the ups and downs, but on average, like 5 to 10 hours a week, and then the full one would be probably like 10 to 15 hours a week. And that's just a rough estimate. I know some people spend a lot less, and some probably use that whole time up. So, but I want to be realistic for you. And then some of those too, if you're doing student observation, then it's going to be really be more time during like 5 weeks of the semester, and not as much during the rest of the semester. So it just kind of depends on exactly what you're doing. But those hour estimates could help. Yeah, so Denise, the MAT program is all novice teachers. They're all and our undergraduates are all novice teachers. And so they would a lot of them are actually teaching in the classroom already, in a master's program, and so you would be mentoring them. Valerie, your question, I don't know all the district politics, but I think what kind of defines you in a doctoral program is what your dissertation's on. So I think if you took some courses in SPED, and then if your dissertation was focused on special education curriculum, or or things like issues with that, I think that would situate you really well for being SPED director. Let's see, Lorian. Yeah, if you're interested in seeing what would transfer beyond the 30 hours, I'm happy to look at your transcripts. I can kind of go through and see pretty quickly, because again, the trick is that it needs to match a course that's in our program. So I can usually go through, and then we just need a syllabi from those courses, so that we could just verify that they are similar. Yeah, so if you're working with online students, that's a nice thing. It's flexible. You can do it on your own time. It would be in the evenings mostly, or whenever you'd want to work on that. So. The application deadline is May 1st. And so, we're about 3 weeks out. So, Denise, there are courses on children's literature, actually. And there may even be one in the English department too. I'm not sure if it's graduate or not, but we do have some on literacy. Yeah, and Teresa, I'd have to check, but those would be in different departments. We wouldn't have them in this College of Education, so I'd have to verify. But I'm sure there are, of course, in African American literature and romance literature. Yeah, and I'm happy to meet anytime and chat one-on-one with you about the details. I can also, if you email me, I can send you, the program of study and the FAQ sheet, and you can have some time to look at that. There's also information on our website too about the curriculum. And we do have an ESL endorsement too. That's another track I forgot to mention, along with the kind of the reading. All right. Yeah, so David, application, yeah, you can answer those individually. It's fine. Yeah, however you want to approach it. I like creative approaches to things, or like however you see it. I don't like to force people to structure things the way they want to. Let's see. Yeah, Lori, and so that's the great thing about this program is that you can really use whatever lens you want to. Myself and Dr. Taylor are both educational historians. Actually just published an educational history book in February on the history of civic education. But yeah, you can definitely use that, and we have several history background. And actually, we have a lot of we actually have, I think, 4 or 5 history educators starting out this year. So there may even be a cohort and maybe even a special course down the road, since we have enough. We have enough for that. So most definitely. Yeah. Interpretive dance. That'd be great. So we don't have a cap on the program, Denise. And so we have had plenty of faculty and staff to support, up to 30 so far. So we're good with that. And after the coursework, things kind of get spaced out a little bit. So yeah, we can handle it. Right. Yeah. Great. Any other questions? Y'all are asking stuff. Yeah. So we do. Dr. Staples is kind of our science and STEM. She doesn't teach necessarily in the EdD, but she teaches a lot of our graduate STEM courses. And then, funny you ask, we are actually hiring someone right now for STEM. So we will have a new faculty member coming on, and yeah, and so I think it'll be good for you, David. I had you in mind all week when because we've been in contact about, I know you'd asked about specific STEM, and so but we also have some really great STEM faculty across campus that would be good to work with. So and engineering too. Yeah, Omar, we could find some ways to work that in. Engineering education is really expanding. There's a lot of need for it. So that combination of education and engineering. So great. I'd like to just kind of, I'll wait and see if there's any more questions, but I really like to just illustrate that, we've built this program around really distinct needs that we've seen from educators, and just seeing some of the challenges and kind of finishing the doctorate, and also, creating a program where you can come and be passionate and learn how to address, some of those educational problems in kind of a inquiry-based way, and better your career and help your school context and or educational context as much as possible. So I'm happy to chat anytime if you have more specific questions, or feel free to email me, like I said, and I can send you more information. Trying to think what else, if there's anything else I need to mention. But yeah, we're flexible and there for you, and we have a really great program on top of everything else. And so we're excited to get a new cohort in. My email. Oh, sorry, I sent that to the wrong place. There you go. Thank you, Brittany.
No problem.
I've been on Zoom a lot today. You think my errors would go down, my error rate would go down, but it doesn't. Any other specific questions? And again, we do have a lot of possibility. We have students that are in music education. We do have a music education department. That's another place that we have students take electives in. And so I was working with one of our students today. He's working on a big study with his orchestra. So we have a whole range of students, and that really adds, I think, to our program. Yeah, we have chemistry teachers, social studies teachers, kindergarten teachers, district curriculum leaders, principals. We have superintendents. We have state office people work in the state education office. So we really have everyone, and community college leaders and university educators. So all across the educational spectrum. Any other questions? Do you mean, Denise, you mean time of year or time of day? Because classes for summer will start in June. They're a little bit staggered, so there'll be 3 classes. And so time of day, yeah. So almost all the classes are in the evening. The only exception is that intro class that Dr. Nguyen, he has it kind of, I think, during the day. But again, it's every class is recorded, so that if you can't make it to one or a few, that and I post them right after class. So if you weren't able to make it to class, but you get home right after when class is done, you can kind of just turn it on and get caught up. So it's very flexible, and it's worked really well for everyone so far. But yeah, most classes are I change it up between kind of like 5 and 7 are usually the normal start times for me. So but I usually kind of gauge to see who the group is too, what works best for everybody, and what time zones are we representing. So this third cohort, we have West Coast, we have Pacific time and East Coast, and we have one student in the Middle East. So all sorts of different time zones. Yeah, so summer session starts in June, that first week in June. Yeah, with those courses, and there is flexibility for those of you who are like, oh, I don't know if I can do 3 courses in the summer. That's perfectly fine. It's just the way we set it up is for those who want to get done in 3 years. That seems to be a really attractive thing for people. But if you're not in a hurry, you can take take less classes, especially during the summer, or take them at other times if it works better for you. So we have a lot of flexibility. Anything else?
Well, yeah, if anyone else has any last minute questions you'd like to ask, feel free to throw those in the chat. Otherwise, if you have questions that we didn't answer tonight or that come up in the next couple of days, feel free to reach out to either myself and Diane at online@ksu.edu or Dr. Clark. His email was put in the chat a minute ago. And if nobody has any other questions, I just want to thank Dr. Clark for that wonderful presentation, as well as thank everyone for joining us here tonight. If you are ready to apply, please visit our website at online.ksu.edu for detailed instructions. As a reminder, everyone who is registered for this webinar will be receiving a recording via email as soon as it's available. Additionally, we do have application fee waivers available for those who attended tonight. So please reach out to us at online@ksu.edu when you're ready to apply, and we will be happy to provide you with a code.
Sorry, I forgot about that. I thought about it while I was talking about the fee, but I wanted to make sure. Great. Yeah, so the application fee will be waived for being here tonight. So that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for everybody joining us. And again, I look forward to any questions you may have, and hopefully seeing your application again to review it. So